now we will be discussing on the role of corporates as citizens and the role that they play in the regulation. So, this discussion will be focused on the business as a key player in the regulatory game. So, this can be seen as a type of initiative taken by the business to do participate in the regulations. So, because of which maybe new forms of regulations have emerged. These new forms of regulations have given rise to like proactive approach to encourage proactive approach from the industry. So, they are asked to participate in the rule making process. So, rather than being addressee in the regulation, they can be they can participate also in the rule making process. So, by taking some of the activities which are more self regulatory in nature. So, and this self regulation have encouraged earlier participation and maybe proactive engagement in the industry, and maybe a incentive given to the organizations who are following this self regulatory mechanism will act as an example for other organizations also to follow these measures. So, it is more cost effective in nature, as asking people to follow the rules and regulations on like first framing the rules and regulations and then asking people to follow it, and then finding out who are not following these rules and regulations. These may involve more cost than leaving it to some extent to the self regulation of the corporates and maybe giving some incentives to those organizations who are following it is more cost effective, and it helps in the faster achievement of objectives, because once there is a common agreement between the what is expected and what to the extent to which the business houses can follow it, to this multi-actor scenario gives a faster achievement of objectives. And so, what we will be focusing over here is the scenario which is a multi-actor scenario of regulation formation, which takes place maybe at the 3 levels, at the like in national levels, at the global levels, and we will try to see how it helps and what are the different activities taken. So, as we were already discussing, like here we will be focusing on the multi-actor scenario, where you can see this, like this is the, as we have already discussed, like there are the business sector is there, the government sector is there, and the CSO sector is there. So, these three are overlapping in nature. So, the regulations discussed under this section 1 are the regulations developed by the government, made by the government. The regulations is discussed under 2 are regulations, self regulations made by the business houses. What is discussed under 6 are civil regulations made by CSOs. 3 and 4, 3 is a regulation made by the business and the government, and 4 is regulations which are developed by the business and the civil societies, whereas the 5 is a sector where it is multipartite agreements. So, we will see, like for 1, these are regulations made by national governments, European Unions, United Nations, international governmental organizations, and international treaties. For regulations made by the business associations, businesses, it is by the business associations, chambers of commerce, then industry associations, individual corporations themselves, the supply chain members, specific initiatives and programs. So, in 3 we find self commitment by industries to the government. In 4 we find like ethical trading initiatives, marine stewardship council, so something regarding with the civil society that the business have entered into regulations. When you are talking of civil regulations made by NGOs, it is NGOs, environment, social and human rights, local community organizations, trade unions. And in 5 we find multipartite agreements like UN Global Compact, European Alliance for CSR, OECD guidelines for MNCs, Dutch Covenant approach, and voluntary principles, security and human rights. So, this multipartite approach we will be elaborating further, and we will see like the regulatory actors or groups involved at the various levels, like whether it is local or regional level, at the national level, and at the international or the global level. So, for government at the local level, it could be regional imperative regulations like anti-pollutions and maybe waste management. At the national level, there are like national imperative regulations like maybe 35-hour week in France, dual waste management in Germany, closure of nuclear power stations in Sweden, examples like that. International global level, like international imperative regulations like European Works Council, etc. For business, at the local and regional level could be the codes of conduct for SMEs or local subsidiaries of corporation. At the national level, like countrywide self-regulations like the BDI in Germany. And for the international global level, like global industry codes of conduct like chemical industry responsible care program, ISO 14000, ISO 26000, these type of standards. Business plus government together, for at the local level, which is the sector 3 that we discussed in the earlier Venn diagram, regional agreements with government. Then in the national level, countrywide agreement with the government, and at the international level, global industries codes negotiated with government organizations. So, environmental management system standards and all this sporting codes, industry codes of conduct, etc. Business plus CSO, which is the segment 4, regional agreements with CSOs at the local level, countrywide agreement with CSOs at the national level, and global industry code of conduct self-commitments or agreements like Forest Stewardship Council, ethical trading initiative at the global level. So at the business, government and CSO, which is the sector 5, which is the multipartite thing that we saw, it is regional multipartite agreements and projects. And the countrywide, when they go for the national level, it is the countrywide multipartite agreements and projects. And in international, at the global level, we find global industry multipartite projects, codes and self-commitments and agreements like global UN Global Compact, etc. So what we find over here, like at the for all the actors at the local level, it is agreements and either following the rules or regulations and or enter into agreements with the local bodies, either for the government, and when it is for the business and government, be it business and CSOs together, or even for the multipartite. But as we gradually move on from the local level to the national, to the international level, so at the regional level there are certain agreements with the between the multi-parties. At the regional level also these are agreements, but when we are moving at the global level, these are more into self-regulations and developing codes of conduct which are to be followed by the MNCs and then the business houses together, where all have contributed towards the development of those codes of conduct. So that is one of the primary things, like focus when you are looking into the global perspective. The codes of conducts are the codes of conducts become very important, and that's codes of conduct. The codes of conduct become very important. So one such thing, one such initiative which is worth mentioning is the UN Global Compact. So where it is talking of like global regulation. So the UN has been a contributor to the player of the global regulation of the companies for quite some time. So the UN Global Compact, which is based on 9 principles, which was initially based on 9 principles. A 10th on anti-corruption has been added in 2004. So this compact, it deals with the sections like human rights in labor, environment and anti-corruption. So with human rights, the business is asked to support and respect the protection of international human rights within their sphere of influence, and also to make sure their own corporations are not complicit in human rights abuses. In the labor area, the business is asked to uphold freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, the elimination of all forms of forced and compulsory labor, the effective abolition of child labor, the elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation. The environment, the business is asked to support a precautionary approach to the environmental challenges, undertake initiative to promote greater environmental responsibility, and to encourage the development and diffusion of environmentally friendly technologies. And in promotion of anti-corruption, the business is asked to work against all forms of corruption, including extortion and bribery. The companies that are willing to join have to provide a letter from their CEOs indicating a commitment to these 10 principles and share at least one example per year of how they have translated one or more of these principles into practice. In return, the companies are allowed to use the UN's Global Compact logo for their corporate publicity. The UN considers this Global Compact to be a facilitator of the dialogue between and learning between business, government, and CSOs. So, it achieves this by establishing a learning platform, forums on global, national, and international, and global, international, national, and the local levels. It has also organized a large number of policy dialogues, for instance, on the role of business in conflict zones or the business and the sustainable development. So, this is one effort taken. Another effort taken is that of partnership projects where business, public sectors, actors, and CSOs are involved into specific projects to tackle ethical problems in business. So, moreover, recently it has included annual report on company progress and included peer reviews of members' progress in regional learning networks. Presently, more than 2,500 companies and 500 CSOs and organizations, universities, cities from over 90 countries have signed for the Global Compact, and it's increasing day by day. So, it was that, however, this initiative initially raised considerable criticism. Several CSO groups have argued that signing up to the 10 principles does not commit corporation to very much, since compliance is not monitored properly and defection is substantially not sanctioned. So, the critics sometimes see this as a mechanism to gain publicity by the business organizations. So, however, this is gaining on more membership, and corporates are trying to follow this regularly. Shows like this is this multi-actor setting leads to a development of some better regulations which are acceptable and maybe which can be like easily used without further without a very lengthy process, and is more cost effective. So, this setting where shifting from where the government is the only the actor, and then to this setting where business, government, and CSOs all come together to mutually agree to a condition which is acceptable to all, gives a better and the business plays a role of a citizen in determining what is that condition that is going to act, help it to act in a much better way in the scenario as given by the means in the environment that it is functioning, where the other actors are also there, like the government and the CSOs, who are the representative voices of the society at large. So, given and the society at large and other non-human entities also at large as far as CSOs are concerned. So, given this scenario, a mutual understanding and sharing of like knowledge between all the 3-4 partners gives to development of a regulatory framework, and also encourages the businesses for self-regulation, because it becomes these regulation becomes more acceptable to them, because they themselves have participated in the development of these regulations, and thus it becomes more practical oriented, rather than getting it like being enforced by the government or the CSOs on the business, but when they participate also in this, so it becomes more acceptable to them and they become more encouraged to follow it. With this discussion, we will move forward to discussing because this is the setting where we have discussed the multi-actor participation in looking towards the how the business is participating in formulating some regulations, some restrictions on itself, some codes of conduct that it requires to follow for what. When you are talking of this for what, the sustainability dimensions comes into focus, where we are trying to impose these self regulations on us. We are trying to follow certain ethically oriented practices. We are trying to follow some principles, and we mutually agree to follow it for the long term perspective, like we also remain in the business, we also survive, and enough of resources are left, enough of good conditions are left in terms of environment, so that the future generation also are able to survive and they are also able to meet their needs. So, we are trying to the multi-actor agreement where these compacts are signed. It is a mutually hand-holding, mutual agreement to follow certain self-regulations and self-discipline, so that it is in the benefit of all, not only for the present actors who are there in the scenario, but also for the future actors who will be there in similar type of scenario in a future time. So, when we are considering this, the existence of the present, also taking care of the existence of the future, we are focusing towards the sustainability dimension. So, in the next discussion, we will move forward to understanding how the government, business can work together towards achieving this sustainability of the present and the future generation, of balance, of synergy. Thank you.